In the modern day, I hear the hum of machines that think. They're called artificial intelligence, and the promises are grand. They're faster, they're smarter, they're tireless. Yet beneath the marvel, many people are concerned. They wonder, will there still be a place for me, or will man be replaced? Well, this fear isn't new. 2.5 centuries ago, another revolution of labor began, not of code and circuits, but this one was of wheels, water, and iron. It too promised progress, and it too exacted a price. Let me take you back to the 1700s. Across the colonies there's upset, but this isn't politics or talk of revolution. It is the unease of workmen, spinners, and tradesmen watching their world change thread by thread. Across the Atlantic, in the textile towns of Lancashire and Nottingham, great contraptions are clattering and hissing. They have names like the spinning jenny, the water frame, and the flying shuttle. To the ear they sound almost harmless, like toys of clever men, but to those who made their living by hand, they were much more. They were a threat. The spinning jenny was born in a cottage near Blackburn, around 1764. It was from the mind of a weaver named James Hargreaves. Now, he was no scholar, he was just a man trying to save time. His daughter Jenny, so the story goes, knocked over a spinning wheel, and as it fell, Hargreaves saw the spindles still turning together. From that accident, he imagined a frame, one that one woman could work alone, guiding 8 spindles at once instead of only one. Soon, 8 became 16, then 80. It was called a miracle of efficiency, but in every cottage where the device arrived, many human hands became unnecessary. Families who had spun thread for generations now watched their livelihood hum away in the corner of someone else's shop. Next came John Kay's flying shuttle. It was actually invented earlier in 1733. It was a small device, a wooden shuttle that glided on wheels through a loom. It was driven by cords and levers instead of fingers. Now, one weaver working alone could do the work of 2. Faster cloth, higher profits, and again, fewer workers. Then in 1769, Richard Arkwright took invention one step further with his water frame. It was a giant spinning machine powered not by hand or foot, but by the force of a river. Imagine it. A mill the size of a barn with gears and belts and hundreds of spindles, all turning endlessly under the rush of water. Inside those water-powered mills, the rhythm of life changed forever. Work followed the wheel. Children crawled beneath the frames to tie broken threads. Women fed the machines until their fingers bled. The water drove the wheels without rest, and so the people couldn't rest either. When these machines were first introduced, people marveled. The newspapers called it progress, a triumph of ingenuity. But in the cottages and fields, something colder crept in. A sense that human worth itself was being recalculated. The spinner's art, the weaver's touch, the small imperfections that made a thread special, those had all been dismissed as inefficient. The machine had no pride and no fatigue, and that made it perfect for profit. While that was happening in England, in Boston, we're still a colony, loyal by law but restless by spirit. Our prosperity depends upon craft. Weavers, tanners, coopers, and shipwrights. Young apprentices learn their trade in dim workshops where every board and tool smells of labor's pride. But whispers reach us from England of machines that can do in an hour what would take one of us a day. And in the dockyards of Boston in 1774, they are already dealing with crisis upon crisis. Taxes, blockades, shortages. Men who once built ships are now sitting idle on the wharves. Wages fall, tempers rise. And now, rumors spread that British factories can make not only cloth, but rope, sails, even the very barrels that once filled our ports. To the workmen, it feels like theft, not of goods, but of purpose. And then, as your machines now replace the mind, theirs began replacing the hand. There were nights when frustration boiled over and looms were sabotaged, bolts of imported cloth cut to ribbons. Such acts seldom made the papers, but they were the quiet crimes of men fighting progress. Yet, something remarkable happened in the colonies. We did not run from invention. We learned to bend it to our will. In Connecticut, blacksmiths learned to smelt scrap into tools for the new mills springing up along the rivers. In Philadelphia, Benjamin Franklin, ever curious, began experimenting with domestic paper mills and printing presses that could multiply words faster than any single hand could write. What began as survival became transformation. Necessity taught us to innovate. That is the other face of technological change, not fear, but adaptation. Each challenge forced a question. How can we use this? How can we shape it to serve us, not master us? And in answering, we found a strength we did not even know we possessed. So, my friends of the 21st century, when you see your world bend under new machines, remember ours. The loom, the frame, the press. They threatened us too. But human spirit, when pressed and put to the test, can spin stronger thread. Because progress is not the villain, indifference is. If the craftsman of 1770 had waited for Parliament to save him, he would have starved. But instead, he built, he learned, he taught and adapted. And because of him, because of them, the United States was born not just of rebellion, but of resourcefulness. So someday, perhaps your children will speak of this age, the age of artificial intelligence, and remember not the jobs lost, but the new ones forged. Perhaps they will tell of how men and women turned fear into invention, how they refused to let machines define the measure of humanity.